Hello all, hope you're having a great day today. So today we're talking about chapter 6. This is community and youth sport. So many people around the world have participated in sport in their communities as children or as adults, or perhaps throughout their lives. As a result, participants may tend to think that their experiences are similar to the experiences of most participants in other localities in North America or around the world. In so doing, they may take for granted the unique organizational and structural challenges surrounding the management of community and youth sport. This chapter introduces the history of community and youth sport in North America as well as its current forms. It also presents an overview of some of the operational, strategic, and sociocultural challenges and opportunities inherent in the design, delivery, and future direction of community and youth sport. The history of sport in North America is difficult to condense because it varies widely by place of residence, ability, religion, gender identity, social class, race, ethnicity, sexual identity, and family background. In other words, not everyone's experience in sport was the same, but some general trends in this sport history can help us understand the place of community sport in our society and the way that community sport is organized and delivered today. Americans began to understand the effect of children's social interactions and activities on their development. Organized sport emerged as a means to facilitate friendship and provide learning experiences transferable to life outside these activities. Since the late 19th century, when the YMCA began offering boys competitive sport opportunities, as per Martin in 2008, sport has been a part of the landscape for children. The boys' clubs also began in the 1800s with the mission of providing safe spaces for boys to play. The charter was expanded in 1990 to represent its current participants as the Boys and Girls Club. Reflecting an equity approach, the Young Women's Children Christian Association, the YWCA, began in 1866. Through sport programming today is found only in a few of the YWCA facilities. It is important to note that the responsibility to provide all youth with access to sport and recreation opportunities is under the purview of YMCAs, whereas the YWCA's mandate focuses on human rights, empowerment, and economic advancement for women and girls, and health and safety for women and girls. Other notable beginnings include the PAL, Pop Warner Football, the CYO, and Little League. The PAL, created in 1914 in New York City, had the goal of providing safe places to play for all children who lived in the city. Pop Warner Football started in 1929 and is still the only youth football organization that requires participants to maintain academic standards. The CYO commenced in 1930, followed by Little League Baseball in 1939 and Little League Softball in 1974. Notice the huge gap between 39 to 1974 when girls for softball. The Canadian Royal Legion began in the 1940s with the Foster Fathers program for boys left fatherless by World War II. The program originated as an effort to teach boys leadership skills through sport. This philosophy, as evidenced by the focus on boys in these original youth sport organizations, is supported by Howard Chudakoff's History of Children at Play in the United States. The historian traces the origins and evolution of community-based youth sport from the male-centered model aimed at building character and preparing young boys and men for their futures in the workplace. Over time, community-based youth sport has evolved to include more girls, particularly after the passage of Title IX in 1972, and its enforcement beginning in the 1980s. In the United States, approximately 20 million children of both genders between the ages of 5 and 14 play sports, either organized or casual, during a given year, and it is estimated that 10 to 12 million play sports regularly or frequently. Organized youth sport has a broad definition in North America that ranges from the community organizations highlighted early to interscholastic and club programs. The variations on sport that exist at town, region, state, or province and national levels are grounded in both the philosophy and the financial situation of the specific location. Shortly after the turn of the century, the Canadian Centre for Ethics in Sport in 2002 released a report that specifically addressed issues in youth sport. The results included discussion that the increasing economic influence of youth sport, particularly at the club level of competition, and the Americanization of sport were leading youth sport away from its beginnings to educate children and build leaders and turning it into a source of revenue and entertainment. With the growing privatization and specialization of organized youth sport that continues throughout North America, some community-based teams and leagues are finding themselves with fewer participants from which to draw. Furthermore, there is more media attention and publicity about elite youth athletes than about the participants in community-based programs. The NCAA's role in amateur basketball is but one example of the ongoing tension in youth sport design and delivery in North America. In youth sport, many questions remain strongly debated. Should the focus be education or elite sport development? And who should govern youth sport? Who has access to the various sport opportunities? Remember that throughout the history of North American sport, not everyone has agreed on the purpose or process of youth sport, which continues to present significant challenges to sport managers in this context. In defining community sport, we take a broad approach wherein it is conceptualized as organized physical activity that is based in community, school, and local sport organizations. Thus, this definition, drawn from work by Stuart Nicholson Smith and Westerbeek in 2004, encompasses both recreational and competitive sport, but does not include exercise and fitness facilities or programs. Further, community sport may, but does not necessarily have to culminate in high-performance sport that takes place at the college, professional, Olympic, national, or international level. The sidebar sampling of community sport organizations in North America provides examples of community sport organizations mentioned throughout the chapter, such as the YMCA, the Police Athletic League or PAL, Amateur Athletic Union or Federation, the United States Youth Soccer, and National Alliance for Youth Sport are just a few of the ones that we'll talk about in this chapter. In professional sport, sport management concerns are often focused on people as spectators and consumers of sport as entertainment. In contrast, the emphasis in community sport is on people as participants. Therefore, management concerns revolve around continuing to attract new participants and keeping them involved in the programs as well as the types of programs or sports offered, the time and place of activities, the organization and delivery of programs, and cost and pricing concerns. Concern for the financial performance of the organization coincides with a focus on high-quality service as well as sport development. By keeping participant needs and wants central, managers can ensure the short and long-term viability of their organizations. In terms of youth community sport, these needs and wants include participation and education on the rules and strategies of the game, as well as the related social and ethical development of the children. Numerous benefits are associated with sport participation. Some of these positive aspects include physical and health outcomes, improved family well-being, a sense of community, and increased social capital for families and other groups. The physical benefits of sport participation include increased cardiovascular health, decreased stress, and increased functioning of the musculoskeletal system. One benefit of sport participation for children is that it helps maintain a healthy weight. Sport participation can also reduce weight in obese children. In addition, people who participate in recreation and sport report better concentration, task persistence, disposition, and analytic ability. These gains can lead to higher work productivity and lower absenteeism. People also report psychological benefits of participation, such as increased self-esteem and social belonging. Children in particular benefit from being physically active through sport. Physical activity improves psychological health and helps cognitive, physical, social, and emotional development. Sport participation and physical activity can delay the onset of many chronic diseases. Overall, there's general agreement that sport participation can positively affect a person's quality of life, and that childhood physical activity through sport increases the likelihood of maintaining an active lifestyle as an adult. Benefits of sport participation extend beyond the individual to include improved family well-being. Families report a greater sense of belonging and increased bonds through sport and recreation participation. Many parents report enjoyment from participating in recreational activities with their children and coaching their children's sports teams and or in attending sport events with their families. Children's athletic participation was associated with higher levels of family satisfaction. Increasingly, however, sport participation is becoming a challenge for families and sometimes can create tensions when family members do not agree on the level or type of sport participation appropriate for the children or the family. Finally, sport participation can create a sense of community and create social capital for families and other groups of people. Social capital can be defined as contextual characteristic that describes patterns of civic engagement, trust, and mutual obligation among individuals. People who participate in sport together and those who volunteer together to deliver a community sport program develop social networks, shared norms, and understandings that can lead to greater cooperation and cohesiveness in a community. One of the main outcomes of sport at its various levels is community development and the building of social capital within and across communities. Capriano and Highstand in 2011 demonstrated how building social capital contributes to the overall health of a community and its residents. Although counting the exact number of people in North America who participate in sport is difficult, recent reports indicate that sport participation in general continues to grow in the United States and Canada, and that millions of people in both countries participate in sport at the recreational and competitive levels. The Canada's survey of giving, volunteering, and participating reports that 53 million Canadians aged 15 or older volunteered for sport organizations that serve participants of all ages in their communities. In the United States, recent data from the Physical Activity Council showed that participation has only slightly increased over the last 5 years. Inactivity decreased for most age groups, with 13 to 17-year-olds having the biggest decrease of a 1.4% and 35 to 44-year-olds having the smallest decrease of 0.2%. Although Americans between the ages of 45 and 54 remain unchanged in inactivity levels, there was a gradual increase in inactivity for 55 to 64-year-olds, and you'll see that here in figure 6.1. In the United States, most traditional sports continue to have strong participation rates, which indicates a continued demand for community sport offerings. But sport managers should note trends in increasing or decreasing demand so that new sports can be added or old sports can be dropped if they are no longer relevant or attractive to participants. Community sport clubs, also known as non-profit sport organizations, provide a myriad of sport opportunities, including curling, ice hockey, cross-country skiing, basketball, and soccer. This network of organization oversees and governs the various elements of the sports system. Non-profit sport organizations are run by volunteers. In this system, therefore, it is not unusual for a sport participant to serve in some volunteer capacity for the organization. In the United States, as in other countries in the world, sport at the community level is offered through a wide range of public, nonprofit, and commercial organizations. Nonprofit organizations include the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club, in which sport is one of the many programs or services offered. Participants pay membership dues to join the organization and access the programs and facilities. A paid staff manages the organization and provides the services. Community sport is also provided at commercial organizations, which typically offer sports such as swimming, golf, and tennis. Some sports are offered in both nonprofit and commercial organizations, such as soccer and running. In the commercial model, members usually pay a fee in exchange for the opportunity to play in the club sports leagues, receive professional training or coaching, and have access to the organization's facilities. As the number of nonprofit and commercial sport organizations continues to grow in the United States, sport management students will have more employment opportunities in community sport. Community sport in the United States is also offered through public entities such as schools and local government parks and recreation facilities. Unlike in most countries throughout the world in which sport for school-aged children is sponsored by community organizations, in the United States, youth sport is offered by public schools and is often considered central to the middle and high school experience. In school-sponsored sport, community taxes support the schools and in turn pay for the coaches and sport opportunities. In some school settings, such as in Texas, coaches are also expected to teach an academic subject, whereas in other settings, such as Colorado or Ohio, coaches can be part-time professionals hired only to coach. As noted earlier, sport opportunities throughout the public schools are largely subsidized by local tax dollars. Some schools charge a participation fee to students to help offset the cost of providing the sports. For more information on such arrangements, you want to check out Chapter 7. Another type of community sport organization is the multi-sport organization, or MSO. For instance, the MSOC is a multi-sport organization arm of the USOC, or the United States Olympic Committee. The goal of the MSOC is to facilitate the growth of the current number of national sport organizations that promote multi-sport participation and provide more opportunities for international, national, and grassroots participation and competition. Publicly supported recreation centers also offer sport and recreation opportunities at the community level. During the 1980s in Mexico, pre-scheduled physical education classes offered in parks and summer youth camps were instituted by the National Institute of Sport, or INDE, partly in response to growing workers' rights efforts, but also in response to a growing understanding of the need for both adults and youth to be active. These centers are usually supported financially by a combination of local tax dollars and user fees, depending on the governmental unit involved. Children engage in sports because they enjoy it, and the slogan "Sport for All" embraces that sports should be available to all children. However, this is more than a slogan in Norway. Unique regulation of activities in voluntary sport organizations aims to protect the youngest athlete from the negative consequences of elite sport. Decades of discussion replaced sport organizations' focus on talent spotting with physical activity within a safe environment. As a result, competitive sport disappeared from the schools in the 1970s, and local sports clubs took over the responsibility under the supervision of the Norwegian Confederation of Sports, which later is called the Norwegian Olympic and Paralympic Committee and Confederation of Sports, or NIF. School sport continues to emphasize pedagogical objectives. Competitive high school sport, as practiced in the United States, is, as a result, almost non-existent in the current Norwegian context. Today, NIF serves as an umbrella organization for sport at all levels in Norway, organizing 54 national sport federations, 19 regional confederations, approximately 366 sport councils, and 11,793 clubs. The NIF is in charge of elite sport with the aim of creating Olympic winners, as well as recreational sport for all age groups. No matter the level or aim of the sport organization, NIF requires that all of the different federations implement child protection measures. These measures, which were developed as guidelines before they became mandatory regulations, were influenced by the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of the Child. Today, the values and provisions are rules that must be complied with, obeyed, and enforced in sports. The NIF created a development plan to ensure the learning of a wide array of fundamental movement skills for all children. For example, the organization recommends that children ages 5 to 7 should play and do a variety of activities. At the age of 6, they are allowed to participate in local competitions, preferably in their own clubs. From ages 7 to 10, exploration and training with different physical activities provide a foundation for subsequent movement training. Different sports adapt activities to the children's level of development. From ages 10 to 12, learning fundamental skills is prioritized, and youth may also pursue an in-depth focus on one or a few sports to ensure a good foundation of technique. At the age of 11, lists of results, tables, and rankings may be used for the first time. In 2007, the regulations were modified to allow children to compete at a national and international championship when they turn 13. Do children benefit from these restrictions? Local sport leaders are aware of the regulations, but not all coaches follow them. Representatives from sports in which early specialization is very important, such as gymnastics, figure skating, diving, argue against them because they believe systematic and specialized training must be allowed and enforced. Historically, Norway has never dominated sports that require such training. However, at the grassroots level, these aims and goals are embraced, and they serve as an alternative to children's elite sport focus, often colored by the media's emphasis. Community sport presents a unique challenge concerning management because its structure, delivery system, and desired outcomes are varied and non-prescriptive. That is, most organizations are highly professional and use paid staff to govern, manage, and deliver the sport offerings. Others are loosely organized, informal volunteer groups that form more of a cooperative coalition to provide sport for themselves and a small network of community members. In many cases, the volunteer board of directors governs the community sport organization and set policies. A paid executive director who employs a small paid staff and a larger cadre of volunteers, especially volunteer coaches, carries out the board's wishes. Although volunteers have long been a mainstay of community sport delivery, pressure is increasing to make sport programs more professional because of legal issues and government policies. Such changes in sport delivery structures can create tension in management styles between professional, standardized, and clearly defined procedures and volunteers' desire to have freedom over the experiences. Still, most experts agree that volunteers are a critical component of community sport, and managing volunteers is essential to organizational functioning and survival. Community sport opportunities in North America are often provided through three basic structures: classes, leagues, and tournaments. Classes are instructional sessions that enhance the skill or fitness level of the participants. For example, people want to participate in golf classes, individual or group, to enhance their golf skills for recreational or competitive play. Leagues are organized forms of ongoing competition in a sport. They may be as simple as a few teams at a community rec center that play each other on a rotating basis, or as complex as a professional sports league. Leagues define the playing season, rules, and participant eligibility, and usually provide a system to determine a champion. Although usually thought of in terms of team sports such as soccer, basketball, and hockey, leagues can also be formed for primarily individual sports such as golf, tennis, and archery. Tournaments are organized forms of sport that usually extend over several days or weeks. They start with a large pool of participants and narrow to an eventual champion. Again, these can be as simple as a local 3-on-3 basketball charity fundraiser, or as complex as the annual U.S. Tennis Open Championship. For example, the United States Tennis Association, or USTA, sponsors tournaments around the country nearly every weekend. The tournaments are managed and sponsored by local tennis clubs or facilities, but they are conducted under USTA rules and regulations. Community youth sport offerings and the rate at which children take advantage of those offerings vary by demographic factors such as socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity, cognitive and behavioral factors such as attitude, family influences, beliefs, perceptions, social influences, and sedentary behaviors, and community factors such as general safety, the built environment, availability of venues for sport, and school and base sport. These factors are important to consider when planning, implementing, and managing youth sport. Organized activities affiliated with youth sport are typically structured as classes, instructional leagues, competitive leagues, and after-school programs. Youth sport classes can begin sport instruction at facilities such as community recreation centers or organizations such as the YMCA or YWCA. From a young age, even infancy, in the case of swimming lessons, children can learn skills, rules, and strategies with an emphasis on enjoyment. These classes can be sport-specific or address a variety of sports and emphasize development. For instance, the West Suburban YMCA in the Boston suburb of Newton, Massachusetts offers a program called Super Sports for children ages 4 to 9. In the 7-week program, children play a different sport each week. Typically, the offerings include kickball, soccer, wiffle ball, basketball, floor hockey, flag football, and an occasional game of dodgeball or capture the flag. These activities facilitate children's learning of sports while maintaining a fun environment. The goal of instructional leagues is to provide information and knowledge to children as they begin to play sports or are introduced to new sports. Youth sport programs build basic motor skills such as eye-hand coordination, footwork, and balance, and provide children with positive instruction in the basic skills, rules, and strategies associated with a specific sport. Children are also provided with the opportunity to scrimmage or play the sport to put into practice. Children can learn basic movement and athletic skills through various youth sport organizations, classes, and leagues. What they have learned. At the younger levels, most leagues have at least an instructional component. Others are strictly instructional with no scores or standings being kept. In Burbank, California, for example, the City Recreation Department provides instructional children's leagues for sports, such as soccer, basketball, baseball, softball, volleyball, and flag football. The philosophy of the offerings and instruction is based in several national models. The City of Burbank is a member of NAES, which adheres to the provision of positive and safe sports and activities for children. The city does this through its application of the NAES National Student Standards for Youth Sports to its coaches, officials, administrators, and young athletes. In addition, the parents of participants complete the Parents Association for Youth Sports orientation program to assist them in understanding how sport plays a role in the development of their children. Specifically, Burbank Softball League offers non-competitive T-ball divisions for kindergarten through grade 2, and then transitions into competitive leagues for grades 3 through 8. The instructional league provides motor skill and fundamental development and concludes the season with its annual jamboree, during which children participate in a parade and skill events to highlight what they have learned during their season. After children enter 3rd grade in Burbank, for example, they transition into competitive spring and fall leagues guided by Amateur Softball Association standards and rules. Children can continue in the competitive leagues until they graduate from high school and enter adult leagues. These ASA national standards and rules provide the structure for a positive environment with quality instruction that adds the competitive aspect of standings and the opportunity to enter the ASA district sport tournament and progress to a national championship. The ASA has more than 90 national championships, starting with pass pitch for ages 10 and under. Annually, more than 40,000 players from children to adults participate in ASA national championships. As they experience the safety and provision provided, the academic enrichment, improvement, and social skills that may occur, and the emphasis on physical health and fitness. The hours immediately after school ends are considered a crucial time in the development of children, but the number of children in the United States in kindergarten through grade 12 who are in after-school programs of any kind has grown 60% in the last 10 years, with close to 4 million children enrolled. The challenge is that as many as 19.4 million parents indicated that they would enroll their children in quality after-school programs if those existed in their neighborhoods. Typically, younger children are more likely to be enrolled in after-school programs than older ones. As many as 66% of participants are in kindergarten through grade 5. The number drops to 15% for grades 6 through 8. And furthermore, as many as 11% of children in kindergarten through grade 5 are identified as taking care of themselves after school with no adults present. In particular, African American and Hispanic youth spend more time unsupervised than other children do. So the demand for after-school programs is much higher for these families. In the United States, public schools provided the larger number of general after-school programs. YMCAs and Boys and Girls Clubs are within the top five of providers of after-school programs, even when sports are not specified in the rankings. For example, the YMCA of Greater Toronto offers after-school programs for children in kindergarten through grade 8 at more than 125 facilities across the metro area, making it the largest provider of after-school programs and care for children in Canada. Through these programs, children receive affordable after-school care centered on healthy character development, and they experience the safety and supervision provided, the academic enrichment and improvement in social skills that may occur, and the emphasis on physical health and fitness. The hours and immediately after school ends are considered a crucial time in the development of children, but the number of children in the United States in kindergarten through grade 12 who are in after-school programs One issue that has become increasingly difficult for many sport managers to navigate is positive sport behavior among participants, parents, and fans during and after athletic contests. Social interactions and fair play within sport often act as microcosms for larger social realities and issues. Consider the case of a recent basketball game between Hamilton and Carver youth organizations. The youth of Hamilton come predominantly from wealthy families and live in a predominantly white community. Students at Carver come mostly from middle or lower SES families and live in predominantly black or Latino communities. The two organizations are only 10 miles apart. These factors contribute to the rivalry between the two organizations. Before the most recent basketball game between the two schools, following the completion of the national anthem, a group of enthusiastic fans from Hamilton began yelling derogatory statements at the Carver players based on their perceived race and ethnicity. Players on both teams took notice of the comments, which created varying levels of frustration, anger, fear, and uncertainty, and created a hostile atmosphere before the game even began. If you saw this, what could be done? If you have seen this before, what was done? I would just suggest that you discuss this and share your experiences and ideas and concerns. We may talk about this in one of our discussions. So, what are the goals and outcomes associated with each youth and community sports sector? And how are access to and equity in community and youth sport complex issues different in communities? And what are some of the challenges that exist in managing youth and community sport, and how would you meet those challenges? So in summary, community and youth sport in North America is offered in a variety of settings, including school and nonprofit, commercial sport clubs, and public recreation centers. The different types of sport structures create various viability and conflicts over the mission and goals of the organization. Although sport participation continues to grow in North America, participation opportunities vary widely based on geography and gender. Children in rural areas and girls still lag behind in access to sport participation. Individuals, families, and communities benefit from sport and physical activity participation. These benefits include improved physical and psychological health, increased family time together, and increased social capital. Because sport can be beneficial, sport managers should identify ways to attract and retain participants in the local community. Community and youth sport opportunities take a variety of forms, ranging from instructional classes to after-school programs to competitive tournaments and leagues. Understanding the goals and structure of a participation opportunity helps managers determine how to best meet the needs of various constituents. Sport managers in this sector must continually monitor participation needs and wants so that they can provide the kinds of sports and formats that best serve their communities. And thank you for joining me for today. I look forward to talking with you again soon. Have a great day.